Well, hello there, and welcome to another Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre, and today is a very special show. I know I say this every week, but today is truly a special show because nobody will fall off the stage. And the reason why that is all our guests today are seasoned Second Life residents, and they also happen to be published authors in the physical world. We have here on the far left here is Ruby Geek. She publishes under her real name Anna Valladares Ruby, and I hope I didn't butcher that. And next to her is Go Speed Racer, aka R Jacques. And then on my other side is CJ Ryder publishing under her real life name Lori Alden Holuta, and next to her is Jessika Jenvieve. Now we're going to introduce everyone um, more thoroughly, but I do want to start today with a little excerpt of the preface of Go Speed Racer's book, Go Speed Racer E's War. Sorry, it's actually just called Racer E's War by R. Jacques, because this will set the stage for what we are talking about. We're going to be talking about the role of Second Life for these authors. Is it a mere backdrop? Is it inspiration? Is it possibly a marketing tool? Is the avatar a brand? Is it more? So I'm going to read a little excerpt here from Racer E's War. This is the preface by R. Jacques. As a child, have you ever played with your dolls, be it G.I. Joes or Barbies, and wondered what sort of life they would have if they could somehow become a real person? I've been a user of the online virtual world of Second Life since 2006, a world inhabited by avatars controlled by human users. Over the years, myself and others have invested a lot of time and passion into our highly customized avatars. In the news recently, it was reported that a person who has died can be recreated virtually by using their life experiences as captured in social media, public records, personal diaries. What if the social media inspired by Second Life avatars were used instead? What would they be like if those avatars had life breathed into them and existed in a futuristic virtual world? How much would they be like us? Would a part of ourselves live on through them? This story features my Second Life avatars and a few of their friends. They live in an idealistic existence which will soon face a threat from the real world. Are they up to the challenge? Keep reading. And that's from Arjak's Racer East War. Really, really, really compelling. I'm actually in the middle of it. It was quite challenging this week with prepping 4 books, so I'm not quite finished. But yeah, so let's do proper introductions after a very, very quick housekeeping rundown. The Second Life Book Club is every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Pacific time, Second Life time, or 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. GMT. The Book Club Island is open 24/7. We have about 200 people that come through every day. The show is produced by Strawberry Linden and myself. Associate producer and researcher is Shyla, the Super Gecko. Location manager, prop master, and master builder, Arieto Kiori and Ruby Geek. Other contributors to the island, Marianne McCann, Arden Schwartzman, Theanine, AJ McDowell. The avatars are customized by Kralos, and some of them are built from scratch by Silas Merlin, except for today, because everybody came with their own avatars. Big thanks to Brett and Patch from Linden Lab and all the molds over there. And of course, a bigger thanks to our wonderful community of book lovers. I say it every week. It's just really, really awesome to see um, how we fill up this space um, every week. So let's do a little bit more thorough introductions. Ruby Geek, or say your name, Ruby. What is your? How do you pronounce your name?
Hi, my name is Ana Valladares. Yeah,
Valladares. And
yes,
you are a debut author. This is your first book, and the Spanish original is Patio de Luces. And you
yes,
actually also decorated the stage, so there's little. The camera can zoom around. Here's a little place where you have your book, and you translated it yourself
yes,
into English, which is amazing.
yeah. it was a bit of a challenge to do it myself, but I think I did it quite all right. Having in mind that I'm not a professional translator or anything like that.
I can only imagine. Does it not drive you crazy, like when you have to read your book and even if you're really happy with it, but then you read it again and again and again and go into detail. I mean, that would drive me crazy. I'm just always
Yeah,
happy when I got something finished and I don't have to go back and review.
yeah. Actually, I had to modify some things on the original or the original manuscript as I was translating because it was like a first revision. I don't know how much, but yeah, it was at the end. It's a bit tiring. You already know what's going on, and it's also easier to let some errors slip. So
Right.
uh, I don't want to do that grind anymore. So far.
We're going to talk about self-publishing and having editors. And I know on the other side of the couch, on the other couch, is CJ Ryder, who publishes under her real life name, Lori Alden Holuta. And you have an editor. I believe it's your husband.
Yep.
He
Yep.
shares the last name, and that's something that we're going to go into depth a little bit later. Because if you're self-published, you may have more control, also more work in marketing, but oftentimes you don't have an editor unless you pay one. So that's good that you have one in-house, Lori.
Yeah. I just pay him with food and we're good to go.
At food and shelter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so Lori is the creator of a town, or is it a world? Industralia?
Actually, Industralia is a country within a world called Bright Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And within Industralia, there's a whole bunch of places, but the main place is called Brass Bright City, which is modeled on New York City. So
And,
a lot
and
of the
Brass
action
Bright
takes
City,
place.
right? That's your YA novel, and I have I
Hmm.
have only read the stories that are sort of precursors of the main story, the flight to Brass Bright City, and that's steampunk. And I'm also
Hmm.
going to ask a little bit later what steampunk is, because
Oh,
I need
there's a
to
big
learn
question.
something. Yes, I,
That's a
I, I
loaded question.
I'll give you 2 minutes to figure out how to answer that.
Mhm.
Next to you is Jessika Jenvieve, and Jessika, you're the only person here on the panel that publishes with your Second Life name. Why?
Uh, well, it's to protect the innocent.
Ah, so you can freely write and trash your relatives.
Well, now I don't have a problem, but at the time it was very much a freeing mechanism, a way to free up myself. And the avatar is very much she's crafted to market my books,
Hmm.
plus to attend events, to meet other writers, to network. Yeah, I don't have a problem really with that at all.
So it's a way your avatar is a pseudonym. I mean, it's a pseudonym for all of us, but it's also your brand.
She's very much my brand. Yeah, it
You even
allows
talk about
me.
her in the third person. That's interesting.
Well,
Hmm.
yeah, it allows me. Well, Jessica's got a life of her own, and it allows me. A lot of people know me as Jessica. It allows me to separate the job that I might be doing with my writing. And at the point at which I did the second book, I really needed to do that in case somebody sued me. Uh,
Oh,
Now I don't have to. Now I can do just what I like.
now, Ghostspeed. I don't want to skip over Ghostspeed, aka Arjak. You're the only one that I know on this panel. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Where you explicitly take Second Life as your playground, and I want to know if your stories come out of role play, or if you look at Second Life and say, well, this I'm going to observe other places, I'm going to go to other regions, other sims, and observe that, and let those characters sort of feed into my story. I mean, it's quite fascinating, and I enjoy your book a lot because there's a lot of. I mean, it's like the best fan fiction in the world for a Second Life anyway, because there's so many references. Of course, you don't call your world Second Life; it's called Simvi Loco. I don't know why it's called Simvi Loco. Maybe everybody is local.
Just popped
Crazy.
out of my head.
Ah. And that was it. Did you write other stuff before that, or was it like, hey, I'm going to start writing as a hobby or whatever you set out to do, and I'm going to do this in Second Life, or did you write other stuff before you started as a Second Life writer?
Well, come on, man. That's like 3 or 4 questions all at once.
Have not watched the show before where I just go on a ramble for 2 minutes and then just stop and then expect people to answer? That's my style. That's my brand.
Well, if you want to start at the beginning, I began writing a Second Life story 2008, never finished. Go back to 2015, and one of my favorite podcasters, Scott Sigler, he podcasts his novels, had a couple of broadcasts about how to write a novel. So it dawned on me, I should write about what I like, which is Second Life.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing about 2016, wrote a couple really bad short stories. And then 2017, I started writing in earnest. And as far as my inspiration, Second Life is my main inspiration. It's not explicitly supposed to be Second Life in a different setting, but the people, the places, the events were the source of inspiration. Not only Second Life, but I watch streamers on Twitch who play Arma 3, which is a military simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I also was inspired by the game LA Noire. Are you familiar with that game?
No.
It's a role-playing game. You play a cop in 1947 Los Angeles. You try to solve crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting game.
So it's not just Second Life. That is interesting. We're gonna go deeper into it because I'm only halfway through your book, actually a third. So I want to know if I'm in this, if I'm in the story. That's really all I care about. But before, and also please, folks, in the chat, put in comments or questions. I'm glancing at the chat. Also, I'm glancing over at YouTube. There's a bunch of people who couldn't get in because the sim is full. Please do try again. We will have readings today. We will also talk about the craft and tips about how to get over maybe anxiety or writer's block. But I do actually want to start with making the round with a question: how does the lockdown and the anxiety surrounding the pandemic affected your creativity? Let's start with Jessika here.
Yeah, well, I did something really stupid. I moved to another country with a language that I don't speak right in the middle of it all.
Wow.
So that caused me a few problems. So I'm now learning Dutch badly. And look, lockdown has messed with my head badly. I had to stop my novel. I just froze. And what I'm doing is I'm writing short stories, which will turn into a collection. They're all little short stories about crime and nemesis and about people getting what they deserve. And I am enjoying the hell out of them. I'm at the moment I'm writing about Lady Gaga's dog, as if I'm the dog. So it's a good experiment, and
That's amazing.
I'll go back to the main novel when I get my vax and I can have a week in Amsterdam, which I desperately need.
So this is your therapeutic intervention that you're doing yourself, and you're picking up obviously sort of real life incidents, as with Lady Gaga.
Yeah. People suggest things to me, and I have a lot of Zoom calls to my friends in Australia. My problem is I don't stay in one country. I live in lots of different countries, and that makes me difficult to publish because all my novels are set in different countries. I just race around the world as it takes me, but it causes a lot of problems, which hopefully now I'm in one place. I do hope so.
Lori, CJ, real quick about the anxiety around the pandemic. That's something that we usually start with. I find it fascinating. People deal with it so differently. Some people actually can are able to block everything out and get a lot of extra time. How about you?
Well, from that point of view, other than a dire illness going around, I've been fine. I'm a recluse by nature anyway. Um, I'm retired from the working world, so I don't have to hassle with trying to work on Zoom or anything like that. But I've been kept very, very busy by other people who seem to be finishing their novels while they're on lockdown, because I also edit for other people. So I've been swamped with work. So I've had no time to mope about it.
Ghostspeed, how about you? Can you write? Can you be productive creatively? Is Second Life maybe also a help a little bit?
Oh, to tell you the truth, I'm struggling.
Hmm.
I guess you call it the COVID blues, the social isolation, the stress. But the actual writing is hard to do. That I have lots of ideas coming to my head. I jot them down. I started a short story, but I can't seem to finish them yet. I'm thinking when the weather warms up in the summer, I'll probably be a lot better. Get back into writing.
And is it easier for you also because you have a book out with shorter stories from Simvi local vignettes? Is that in general? That's something fascinating to me. Is it easier to kind of knock out a bunch of short stories than a novel? I mean, that seems kind of like an obvious question, but I also had guests who said, well, not necessarily. A short story has to. I mean, there's different challenges to a short story.
Well, when you write a novel, there are so many stories that you could include in it, but you can't. You only put so much into your narrative. And then what do you do with them? You throw them away? No, you save them.
Ah.
They sort of fill in the little gaps and they fill in the holes between the novels.
Wow. So that's a pretty productive way of looking at it. So now let's make the round, get a little bit into the work. Ruby, you started with Spanish, as we have established. Your book is about a young woman, and after a suicide attempt, she enters this fantastical world. It's also kind of alluded to that it's like a different time, and she is called an anachronic, and there's a bunch of other anachronics. Did Second Life play a part in as an inspiration? I mean, it does remind me a little bit of the Never-Ending Story, like broadly, I guess. But was Second Life on your mind when you wrote that?
Yeah, well, in a way, when she enters this new place, she basically starts a second life anew, and
Right.
you
Yes.
what was my inspiration was when you create your new account in here, you have this no expectation at all. You can like create yourself again and live your second life how you want to do it, like freely. Nobody knows your past, nobody knows what are your intentions, and it's a blank canvas. And in that way, I think that inspired me for the way that Deborah, the main characters, uh, does her things and why she does her things. Like basically, she explores this new world, this new life, with such a freedom that wouldn't be possible if she was still in the real world.
Wow, you're blowing my mind with this analysis. Now I realize it because I mean, full disclosure, I helped you proofread the English version and corrected a few minor grammatical mistakes. Thank you for hiring someone who also does not have English as his native language. That was a smart move. We'll see what. By the way, I want to say that everybody here in the room, please, as you're here listening to the Second Life Book Club, as you're watching it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, please check out these authors. The description is in YouTube. There's links to everyone, and everyone has very affordable Kindle prices, ebook prices. Please pick up a book if you fancy, because we do need to support especially our Second Life authors. Now, Ruby, this is really interesting because your character advances. Deborah, she comes to this new world, and just like you said, she actually makes it up to the king, and whispers into the king's ear and has some ideas that are. I mean, she advances to like a pretty big role in that administration in that weird kingdom.
Yeah.
Just like you said, it's like really a blank slate. The only thing that happens in the book is that she remembers songs from the 80s and 90s. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are um, self-published, and we're going to make the round on this because Shyla and I, in preparation for the show, we talked a lot about publishing. So, real quick, Ruby, what is the good thing about self-publishing? What's the bad thing?
I think that the main good thing is that I can choose my cover, my book cover. No, and apart from that, you don't really have to think about what people want in a commercial way. It's like you have a little bit more of freedom to write what you want. But the bad part is that there absolutely nobody's going to help you with the marketing of your book. All of the following, you have to do it yourself. And I am myself, I'm absolutely dreadful bad at that. But I do what I can. And I find it very hard, especially as a absolutely noob author like I am, to find credibility and following amongst even other authors. So I think it's like going against the seas.
So you're talking about like credibility among readers, like interest in readers, let alone other authors. They go like,
Yes.
who is this person?
Exactly. Exactly. People are like, who are you and why do you think we should read you? And usually, yeah. But yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge is you go on your own and you are a bit, unless you have a past marketing or are very good at it, you are left to your own demise.
I read a piece in the Guardian earlier today where it says it's 90% marketing and 10% writing. Laurie, CJ, how about you? What's the pros and cons about self-publishing? And we already established that you got a good crew in-house with your husband.
Yeah, there's that, and I also quite a few of my Second Life friends are allies in this, and we all work together and brainstorm together, help each other. My book cover, two of my book covers were made by Second Lifers, two different ones. So the cover of the Flight to Brassbright, that wild yellow and red thing.
And we have it here on the table, by the way. The camera's aware of it. We have all of CJ's books here on the table, as well as every other author's here on the table and around. Yeah.
Excellent.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And also my cookbook was made by a different Second Life artist. So that was nice. My genre is pretty easy to promote because of cons. I go to a lot of steampunk cons and have book tables there. So I've developed a secondary family that way too. So I've got a couple of circles that are very effective for promoting and encouraging and giving me ideas. So I never feel like I'm alone.
You're also writing for the Primgraph. I'm not anymore. I'm throwing that up here.
Yeah, it's out of business now. But that was a Second Life publication that Safia Wittershins did. And
actually, I'm putting a still up in behind us. The website is still up. I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, I used to webmistress that site. Yeah, that looks familiar. Wow. And she also does Designing Worlds and the Prim Perfect magazine, and I worked with her on those. So, but I've since retired from those.
Have you thought about answering my question about what is steampunk? You're in the steampunk genre.
Well,
can you definitively define that so that people can transcribe what you're saying and put it on Wikipedia? I brought you
pressure.
here as the expert.
Okay. my version of it is picture that we were in Victorian times and then moved forward to the present, but we didn't develop the power systems that we use now. So we developed computers and other technology, but we still relied on steam to run them. So that's my take on it. Ask anybody else, you'll get a different take.
What's your fascination with that? Why did you embark, and as far as I know, sort of stayed in that genre? And as you mentioned, you have two recipe books. They're based on virtual world communities. One is called, they're not on the table here, by the way, weirdly enough, although a cookbook on a table would be good. One is called Steamed and Steamy, and the other one is called Iron Bay Chef 2.
Oh, Iron Bay Chef 2 is a collection of recipes from a contest we had in Second Life in the region of New Babbage, which I hope people know about New Babbage, and if they don't, they need to find out.
If they don't, they need to leave now. That's how we roll here. No. New Babbage is one of the greatest steampunk regions. It's, I mean, or not even steampunk. It's one of the must visits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
There's two Babbagers out in the audience. I see Sarah back there by the parrot, and I see Nika up front. They are also part of my little writer tribe in Second Life and New Babbage. So anyway, where was I going with this?
The cookbooks are inspired and tied into also with your Second Life,
right,
ongoing, or your Second Life.
Yeah. Steamed and Steamy came out of all the fiction books I wrote because my characters eat a lot because I'm a foodie, and so I write them with food. But I pulled all the recipes out and I made a full cookbook. So that was fun. I never want to index a cookbook again, though, ever.
All these books are available now. My goal today is I want to sell 20 books, not me. I want to be the boardwalk pitch man that sells 20 books today within the hour from these wonderful Second Lifers. And by the way, Second Lifer has nothing to do with a life sentence, or does it?
It does. I turned 14 this month. Come on.
Me too. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's focus here. Jessika, how about you with the self-publishing thing? You already mentioned earlier it's hard to place you, I guess, from a marketing standpoint. It's what your self-perception is. I'm reading The Exposure now, which is a crime thriller. It's really, really good. You depict a family. The marriage is falling apart. There is a woman that's being assaulted. I mean, it's wonderful crime genre. I haven't read a crime thriller in a long time, and it's expertly plotted. But you're also writing other stuff. Something about rock stars. This is the other one that I have. What is it called?
Relatively accidental.
Right.
That's the whodunit you'll never solve.
The whodunit, exactly. You're a good marketer. That's right in there. The whodunit you never solve.
Look, I hate Amazon, but I'm not a young woman. I've had a couple of successful careers. I now earn my living as an editor, so I edit my own books, even though my covers are done professionally. Let me give a shout out to a company called 99 Designs. They'll run a competition, and various people will enter to do your cover for you. And it's really cheap, and you get to pick the one you like, and you work with a young designer. So that's how I get my covers. I do my own editing, so that's about 7 complete edits on every book. I have a group of trusted readers who read everything for me, but I don't have time to waste. And I could spend my life chasing agents and publishers. I do submit. But because I'm hard to pinpoint and I'm not going to fit in your genre, I won't go in it. I'm my own woman and I'll wriggle around. I got them on Amazon. Out we go. If someone comes along and wants to take them over and they're independent, yes, please. But at the moment, I don't have time to wait. What matters is what I write,
Mhm.
and is writing and developing and growing. I've been writing for a very long time. SL is still usually supplies me with a character, uh, but the DJ in Relatively Accidental came from Second Life. He was
Mhm.
a complete monster. You can go and listen to his sets, but he was perfect for that character and that book.
Mhm.
I get a lot of names from Second Life. I got a wonderful husband, so I'm pretty
That's we're
happy.
talking a real life husband now, not someone in
I
the book.
He
Mhm.
is my real husband. Yeah, that
Mhm.
was very, very unexpected,
Mhm.
but it gives me lots of inspiration, lots of good friends, and lots of ideal readers, as I call them. But one day a publisher will wander in and say, "Hey, we'd like you," and I'll say, "Okay." Although Relatively Accidental should be a TV play, and I'm thinking about how to market that.
I'm looking forward to reading that too. I mean, it's really it was an enjoyable, it was a stressful week because I usually want to go through all the books in preparation for the show, and this week I couldn't do it. I'm halfway through Racer Ease and halfway through Exposure. Thankfully, CJ, aka Lori, writes for children. So that's
Short stories. Yeah.
right. It's still
Mhm.
for me a little bit challenging read, even though it's for children, but that may be my problem. Okay. Uh, you mentioned Jessica, you said you hate Amazon, but I want to address this in a little bit, but first there's a comment here in the local chat. Charlotte says, do independent authors have networking groups to help each other? And Ruby, you mentioned that it's actually from your perspective really hard. I mean, your first time authoring your first novel, and you indicated that it's really hard to get kind of any recognition beyond like, who are you, what are you doing here? The others, what would you say about a support network? Is it cutthroat out there? Do you have your networks? Anybody?
I don't think it's cutthroat at all. I've gotten so much support in different pockets. Twitter has a writers community that's great. Second Life has multiples. I have one locally. The steampunk community supports its writers. Wherever I look, I've got support, and I really am grateful for that.
I would absolutely agree with that. Second Life is full of really supportive people. It's been great.
I have heard from Twitter that some people say there are some cliques and some groups. I mean, it's not surprising, that happens absolutely everywhere you are in life, and there are just some people who would backstab and then take opportunities for themselves and so on and so forth. I guess that would not be surprising if that happens as well in our independent circles.
As we say on Second Life, mute is your friend.
Yes.
Ah,
I
ah.
haven't had to use it yet, but I would if that came along.
We have a comment here. This is not really related to the topic at hand. PhD 42 says, we are PhD researchers in educational technology at Kazim University in Saudi Arabia. Our professor Abdul Karim Al Saif, a graduate of Wayne University in Detroit, to investigate the role of Second Life and its role in learning environments. Well, welcome to the book club. This is, in fact, the Second Life book club. We're talking today with four published authors that are also longtime residents of this world. And we are at the bottom of the hour. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon. And I'm just going to throw up a few stills here that Shyla prepared. Actually, Shyla, you have to send them to me so that I can modify them. So let's skip that for a little bit. Self-publishing through Amazon, everybody says it's a necessary evil, or a version of that phrase. Is there anything else? When I was Googling earlier, saying looking for self-publishing, I came across Lulu. I was aware of Lulu. I'm throwing this up here. This is
Mhm.
another print on demand thing, but they don't offer the distribution. So is Amazon pretty much the only
No, there's
game in town? Go ahead, go speed.
Smashwords.com.
Yeah, Smashwords is a good one.
Smashwords, and
Yeah.
what do they offer?
They'll distribute your book. They'll also send them out to like Kobo, Apple, and so forth.
hmm They've got a system for uploading your book. You don't just upload like Amazon and there you are. You have to meet their rather strict standards. But what happens then is their system, which is called the meat grinder, it spits out your book in every format you could imagine, right down to a text file.
Mhm.
So you've got those, you can download them to your computer, and you have those as tools to use when you're selling your book. You can offer it to someone in any format you like. And
Mhm.
I've always found that to be a fantastic benefit of Smashwords.
And the coupon function is nice too.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Is it hard to go through this formatting process back and forth? How long does it take when you list it either on Amazon or Smashwords? What's the procedure,
Oh,
the back and forth until it's approved?
you've got to be good. I mean, not just for their approval, for your own standards. There is no point marketing your book if it has mistakes in it.
Absolutely.
You've got to be perfect. My problem is that I write in Australian English. Some of my conventions are Australian, but sometimes I'm writing books based in another country. So you throw up all kinds of spelling problems. But you have to be perfect. The margins have to be perfect. The grammar has to be good. The whole look of your book has to be good, or you're wasting your time.
Mhm.
And with a big book, exposure took about 9 months to edit and get up there.
Wow.
That sounds about right to me, too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it,
But
you,
you're including the editing. Okay, you're including your own editing as well.
but
Mhm.
what I do is I go onto the Amazon format, I load it in for the Amazon print format, and then I edit within that format so I can see what I'm doing.
Mhm.
You've got to get it right. You can't produce a shoddy book, or you're not an author.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Their system lets you see what you're uploading, too. You don't have to hit the publish button right away just because you uploaded a manuscript. You can check it. You can use their tools to see how it's going to look in a Kindle. You can see everything and get it right before you ever hit that publish button.
Mhm. I'm going to throw up some images because I think it's important in the context because Amazon is a pro and con. I use Amazon myself as a consumer, but the more we hear and learn about specifically their labor practices, I this is my personal problem. That's why I want to address it briefly and then make the rounds if you guys have a problem with that or if there's another problem. I mean, there's the problem of a monopolist that also takes certain fees and can push people into accepting these fees as an author. Cory Doctorow, who was a guest here on the program, has had a very public, um, not a fight, but a very public campaign to retain the rights for his audiobook. There is also a scandal brewing in Amazon where they did not pay authors for their Audible revenue. That there are several lawsuits pending. Here's a bunch of images from labor protests in Minneapolis. This one is in Alabama, where Amazon is trying to suppress unionization efforts by workers. They have fired people, and I'm not throwing up these images to make people so appalled of Amazon that they won't use it. I just want to put light on the dilemma that I think we're all in as people who seek distribution, publishing. My music is published on Amazon as well, because people search there. I just want to throw this question out. Is there something we can do um, as authors, as consumers, if we, feel, to put it mildly, uneasy about how Amazon is exploiting their workers. There was actually a case in January of a woman who died. I think she died in January. She was telling HR about COVID measures and safety measures that were just not implemented, and then she died. And her pleas to HR were kind of ignored. Here's an image of Amazon's market share. They own Book Depository, which we know, Goodreads, and it's a over 70% market share. So my question, how do you guys feel about your association with Amazon? How should we deal with that?
I feel sick. I don't like doing it. But the minute I can move, the minute I can find a small publisher, hopefully someone new who's doing a startup, and I have time to work with them and they want to work with me, then off I go. Meanwhile, all I can do is I don't buy my books from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I buy them from any independent publisher that I can find, and often I have to pay $1 to get them from another country. That's all I can do at the moment to stay away from Amazon.
That's exactly how I do it as well. And we had an author, and I forgot who it was, of the Parliament House Press, maybe it was Sean last week, who said, we can shape also our local communities if we sort of not reprogram, but just accept something that many of us have accepted our entire lives, which is to wait a little bit, to wait maybe a couple days longer than the Amazon fast delivery if we want to support a local bookstore. Call them up, ask them if they have it. If they don't, let them order it and wait a little bit longer and help that local bookstore to stay in your community longer and not go out of business. Yeah. Anybody else on the panel?
Don't use unlimited, KU.
Oh, what's that? Elaborate, please.
Kindle Unlimited, where you can read books for basically nothing for $9 a month.
Uh-huh.
Authors don't get very much money off that. You're paid per page read. In fact, Amazon has a pool like this year was $30 million for all the authors.
Yeah, I followed the pool too.
The more people read, the less you get.
Yeah, I always throw away those emails because I know they're never going to apply to me.
Wait a minute. The more people read, the less you make?
Yeah, there's a limited pool of money. There's like $30 million for all the authors in the world. So the amount you get per page reduces the more people read books.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh my God, that's worse than the music industry, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get, I think you need 1 million plays on YouTube or Spotify to make $1,000 or something, or $900.
Mhm.
Wow.
That sounds similar. Yeah, I have an overall kind of a slightly long-term plan regarding Amazon.
Please.
Right now they're the only game that fits in with my schedule and mentality and efforts and resources. But I do have a plan after I get my second novel out, which I really hope is happening this year, that I'm going to do second editions of all my books with a whole fresh series of covers and some little changes and corrections, and then republish those through Smashwords. And I'm just going to wean myself off of Amazon. But for the moment, just where I am and with my limited resources, I'm using Amazon as a crutch. I'll admit it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Guilty as charged. We had sorry, Ruby, I'm stepping on you. It was amazing to me also to see Elliot Pepper, who was on the show, was a fantastic guest, and he is published through 47 North, which is an Amazon-owned publishing company. And he said, you know what, let's discuss the analog series. Do you want to read all 3 books? And I said, sure. And then he says, okay, I'll put an order in. And then I had those books 2 days later in Germany, because it was print on demand. They printed it in Poland, and boom, here we go.
Just to interject, Smashwords doesn't do paperbacks. That's the other thing that keeps us at Amazon too.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So Ruby, I was stepping on you. Please go ahead.
Basically, I was agreeing with CJ here, and also about thinking. I was thinking myself that well, this book that I have now is the first part of a small series, and my idea was to, once the whole series is out, I wanted to try to do crowdfunding or something like that, so I can print it on paper by myself and distribute it myself, like outside of Amazon. That will be one of my goals in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could do that with Lulu. I guess Lulu does that, right? Or
Yes.
blurb.com, I guess,
Yeah.
does that too, but they just don't have the distribution. And then you could distribute it, but then you have to do even more marketing with your site.
Yeah.
Um,
But when
Also, just real fast, Lulu's books, unfortunately, are not that high of a quality. I've ordered a few of them, and I just wouldn't want my books done that way. So that's all.
and I was saying that one of the good things about crowdfunding that I've seen a lot of authors from Spain is that most of the people who join the crowdfunding, they are actually buying the book, so there's not really so much of a loss there, because you make sure that they are going to get their copy, all of them.
Shyla says here in the, just to dump a little bit more on Amazon, and then we really got to go to reading because I want to hear readings here. Everybody wants to hear readings. Can we get a round of yes or no about readings here in the local chat, please? Shyla says here in the chat, if a reader buys one of Amazon's title on a Kindle, Amazon receives a cut both as publisher and as bookseller, not to mention whatever markup it made on the device in the first place, as well as the amortized value of having created more content to draw people into its various book subscription offerings. One literary agent summed it up in the Wall Street Journal in January. They aren't gaming the system; they own the system. And earlier, I didn't finish my thought on Cory Doctorow. It's interesting. You can follow and look at his website how he is publishing his audiobook, and there's a bunch of blog posts where he goes into detail about the issue of Amazon not paying authors their fair share on the Audible downloads. There's some sort of scam was going on. I think it's not like I said. There's a bunch of lawsuits pending. Before we go to the reading, I'm going to throw up a bunch of slides here. This is a woman, Kath McGill, longtime Second Life resident, and she does something very interesting. I would have loved to have her on the panel, but lost contact. Kath McGill produces picture books for children in Second Life. So she creates the sets. She has this series on hedgehogs, and she creates the sets and takes those pictures. And these books are available in the real world as printed books, but they're also available in Second Life as objects on Marketplace, where they're obviously gigantic objects that you can read in Second Life. Here is another image of a set of hers where she arranges the hedgehogs in the specific story and then uses those images. Here in this case, there is a hedgehog going to bed, and the father is here with the swim goggles, and then they come out as these gigantic books. Have you guys thought about using Second Life this way, or are you currently doing this either selling Second Life object books basically, or using Second Life as an engine of a graphic novel, as Ghostspeed says? Yeah.
Oh, I have a lot to say on that topic.
Go.
My books are available in Second Life using a system called Workbooks. That's WERK. And Nika out there in the audience, wave hello to her. She is the creator of that system.
I heard that name. I think she might be coming to the show at some point.
I think she is. Yeah. But it's a great system, and it's got a lot of anti-pirating tools in it too. People can't just burn a copy of it off because of a very clever way that the pages are made. And it's very high quality. You can put it up on your HUD and read it, real large on your viewer, or you can set the book out, arrange it as you like. and only the person who bought it can read it. So other people who want to read the story need to go buy the book. But I have
That's
all these in
amazing.
my bookstore.
Hmm. In your bookstore in Second Life.
Yes.
Do you own a sim or region in Second Life? Is that something that you also sort of publicize in the context of in other places? Can you sort of measure if people actually come from the real world into here, or rather not? It's more for our
I
little
personally
insular community.
can't.
Hmm.
I just rent a little shop on Book Island.
Hmm.
But what I do is I put a free workbook out. It's just a little tiny book about foraging for plants. It's kind of a plant guide. And people can pick that up for free to kind of see what the workbook's all about. But by following that in my sales in Second Life, I can kind of gauge about how many people are coming through by how many people pick up that little book.
Hmm. Wonderful. It's amazing. I mean, I'm really waiting for people to use Second Life a little bit more to that purpose. Anybody else has tried that here on the panel?
I give away my first book, which was totally set in Second Life. I give that away via my profile. So the profile will give you a link to my website and you can get a free download.
Hmm.
That book is totally Second Life, and I don't attempt to sell it because it was the very first one I did. So that's really all I do. But I've got my little bookshop, which I'm hoping to put somewhere and do some more marketing.
Now, we are almost at the top of the hour, and I will get into the same trouble that I always get. We have readings. Let's go through the readings, folks, and please don't panic. Don't read too fast, but keep it as short as you can. Maybe we have to kind of shorten it on the fly to 3 minutes each. I don't know if you can live edit your work.
I
Uh,
think I can keep up a good pace.
okay. It's not. I'm not going to ban, block, or abuse report you if you don't manage to do it. Um, or maybe I will. Oh yeah, please put your. We'll do this later. We'll put all the links here to the shop, the Second Life stores in here. And let me remind folks, please go to the authors' pages, websites. They're all linked on the show description on YouTube and on the Second Life Book Club calendar. And pick up a book. Pick up an ebook before the show ends. Ghostspeed, you're first. What are we hearing from you, Ghostspeed? And your book is on the book stand. May I ask you to please stand up, walk forward, don't fall off the stage. I know it's not easy. Here we go. And what are we hearing from you? Am I in this? Am I in this
Not in this
excerpt?
scene. It's actually two scenes. They're originally written together, but I've split them apart during the editing process. And they give the vantage point from a different person.
Okay.
And the novel is called Rassier's War.
Oh, that's how you pronounce it, Rassiers.
Yes, and the last name is pronounced Jaques, but I accept Jacques from anybody.
Oh boy. I butchered many names today. Okay, please edit it on the fly. Be mindful of time. I don't want to stress anybody out. We're here to enjoy. So read at your own pace. Thank you. And action.
May 1st, 2490 AD, the village of Cantius. It was a beautiful morning in Cantius. Cloudless skies allowed the bright sun to warm the chilled air and create breezes. A gentle wind delivered the fragrance of wildflowers through an open window. The steady hum of a bus engine slowly grew louder and then stopped, indicating its arrival at the hostel across the street. A faint babbling sound heralded the discharge of the tourists who were checking in. Sometime later, a few of those tourists would cross the street to Ghostspeed's place and ask for a local tour. She would, of course, oblige and give them a walking tour of the town to include the 3 hills that surrounded it: Riga, the tall peak to the south; Chapel Hill on the west, which had a sanctuary on top; and the nameless rock-strewn hill to the north. Until then, she'd busy herself by sitting at her table, sipping her tea, and reading the latest island gossip on her data pad. There was an unexpected knock on the door that startled her. Could it be a neighbor? Cantius had a population of 360 people. 80% were users who spent anywhere from 1 to 16 hours a day logged in, or the remaining 20% were NPCs who were present 24 hours. I'll be right there, she said as she made her way to the front door. Ghostspeed opened the door to face a large, muscular man who easily measured 2 meters tall. Can I help you, sir? Yes, ma'am. I've come here to be entertained. Can you show me a good time? I can show you around town, but I normally wait till after. Didn't say that. I can show you around town, but I normally do it with small groups right after lunch. I can't wait that long. It took me years to save up the credits to access this simulation. Now I want to have fun that I'm denied in real life, said the burly man as he traced a finger down Ghostspeed's brown cheek. You sure are pretty, dear. May I smell your rose? The man began lowering his face towards the rose tattoo on Ghostspeed's exposed cleavage. She stopped him by firmly grabbing his nose and twisting it. In a stern voice, she said, that is not the sort of fun you'll find here, or this town, or on this island. You get your sorry ass back on the bus and leave. Now. She began pushing the man back to the door when he raised a hand to strike her. Zip, zip, came a sudden noise. The man fell over backwards hard on the ground and writhed in pain. Another zip, and he lay motionless, a pool of blood forming near his head. I've got another scene. Do you want me to read it?
This is so awesome, Ghostspeed. Yes, please. Thank you. And I just want to say that the story takes place about 500 years from now. And again, I mean, we established earlier that, this is my assessment. It's like the most awesome fan fiction in the world, because as a Second Life enthusiast, the dynamic between the residents and the NPCs, and I mean, there's like so many awesome in jokes and references. And this is Ghostspeed, one of the heroes, and she has a rose on her cleavage, just like you have. So yeah, please, the second scene. Yeah, we okay. Must hear that. Can you set it up? Is it right after this one? This is kind of the beginning, right?
Almost at the same point. It leads right up to it. And it's from the viewpoint of Ravishal Bentham, another character in the story.
And who is he? Do we need to know who he is?
He is a captain in the army.
Okay.
He's going to be doing some of the fighting. Ravishal awoke at sunrise and quickly ate breakfast. Looking out his window, he could see that Ghostspeed's car was still parked next to her house. Downstairs in the hostel's lobby, he was surprised to see that big guy was reading the bulletin boards. Ravishal pretended to give him no notice and walked through it straight outside. He crossed the empty street, then walked along the outer wall of her house. When he reached the end of the wall, he ducked behind the corner. Peering back around the corner, he saw him again. Big guy stood in front of the hospital, scratching himself and spitting on the ground. He was looking at her house, having around it as if deciding on his next course of action. This is going to be a problem, he thought. Vaulting over the wall, he landed behind a bush. There was no barking, which thankfully meant the dog was not outside. Accessing his combat harness, he rezzed his military uniform and his air pistol. He heard a bus stop in front of the hostel, and a group of noisy passengers disembarked. Using the noise as cover, he walked softly behind the bushes along the front wall and waited near the main gate in silence. A shadow fell across the bush he was hiding behind. Big guy was sauntering up to the driveway towards her door. He looked agitated and antsy. Ravishal drew his air pistol and switched the safety off. The brute knocked on the door. She opened the door. The brute leaned into her, causing Ravishal to aim his weapon at him. She grabbed the brute's nose, pushed him back, causing him to stumble. He caught himself, then he raised his hand to strike her. He pulled the trigger twice. Zip, zip, then once more. Zip. That's it.
Awesome.
Wow.
This is our Jacques, because you accepted from me, Ghostspeed. I'm going to learn your name until next week. And this is the first in a trilogy. Big round of applause for Ghostspeed.
Thank you.
This is, yeah, I mean, like I said, actually,
Great.
do you think that this is accessible to people outside of Second Life? I think it is, because I just realized when I say this is fan fiction, it could imply that, okay, if you're not part of our world here, you really don't get what's going on. But I think I think it's accessible to other people too, because it's essentially about uh, the dynamic between people who live in a simulation, NPCs, people, real people, agents, and the real world.
Yeah, I think it appeals. Well, it definitely appeals to people in Second Life. It also appeals to people in who play military simulations.
Right.
Maybe if you're a fan of Ready Player One, you might get it. But when other people read it, I give the book to. They scratch their heads and like, I don't get it.
Actually, my question should be more: do you care if people don't get it?
Care.
Good. That's the right answer. Kids who are listening here, the thing is, and we hear this from every author, uh, you have to like it, write what you want to read. And if people don't get it, um, you acquire that skill to not care over time, I guess, right, Jessika? Because you're next. Do you care?
Oh,
A little bit.
a little bit, a little bit. I'm next. So shall I walk and talk at the same time? Would you like me to do
I don't
that?
know if you can do that. How long have
I
you been
think
in
I
Second
can.
Life?
A lot of years. Okay, here we go. I promised my friend out there I wouldn't fall off the stage. Right, I'm there. Okay, speed
This is
is
the
of the
university
essence.
cat.
It is. This is magic realism. It is
Mhm.
set. It's called The University Cat: A Tale for Grown-ups and Graduates, and it
Hmm.
was written in 2014, and it's set in the University of Sydney. The central character is Penny, a super intelligent Siamese cat who had her origins on Second Life. Everybody else is real. So, Sydney University, Google it, it's beautiful. It was built in 1854 and has lots of gargoyles. So, in this extract, the gargoyles are holding their version of a faculty meeting. They take their names from the descriptions on the architect's blueprints, which describes their attributes. And previously, our hero Penny has just escaped being eaten.
The cat. Mhm.
Yep. And the three stone monsters are planning to attack the university museum and steal the toe of a mummified cat. Here we go. I've edited it a little bit for you. That night, much higher up and in a far darker place, the three gargoyles were drifting steadily out of their state of suspension. Stone limbs and organs were drawing nourishment from their organic origins and slowly drifting back to life. Eyes that had seen things too terrible to speak out loud were raising their heavy stone eyelids. The gargoyles had unfinished business, and now they were waking up and flexing their claws. Dogface unfurled his wings and sniffed horribly. They were not in a good mood, but they seldom were. Dragonclaw, with his long tail and huge claws, writhed very slowly as his stone entrails came to life and pained him. Fishbeak shook his grey head as if in annoyance of having a fish firmly carved in his beak for eternity was just more than he could stand. Dragonclaw slowly slithered to the edge of the stone parapet, where he sensed movement, and ignoring the squawking and shrieking of the adult birds circling around, he removed in his talons an entire nest of wriggling fledglings and placed them in the centre of the assembled gargoyles. "Yuck! Them's babies," complained Dragonclaw, breathing a foul stench over the terrified birds. Overhead, the adult birds were working up to a frenzy while not daring to get too close even to rescue their offspring. Dragonclaw slithered over to the little nest and reached out a long talon to extract one of the small snacks. The tiny birds screamed in fear and clung together in the centre of the nest. He lifted a tiny frightened bird up and away from its siblings and regarded the trembling body with amusement. Sensing a terrible fate awaited them all, the other fledglings, instead of waiting to be dismembered, decided to test their new flight feathers. It was now, or all that evolution would go to waste. The birds flapped their wings madly and with one rush got airborne and headed straight up towards the claw, holding their little fellow. Dragonflaw instinctively opened his claws to grab them all and let go of his grip on the first bird, who, realizing he was falling, started to beat his wings, got airborne, and threw himself off the roof in what would be his first or possibly his last flight. The others followed and swooped to the ground, landing in a heap in the middle of the lawn. The adult birds landed close by to protect them and ushered the whole family to the safety of the nearest patch of shrubbery. High above, Dragonclaw shredded the nest in fury. The meeting had not made a very good beginning. Fishbeak decided to call the meeting to order, and after clapping his huge claws to command attention, he nodded to Dogface to give a report of the last meeting. Excuse me. At the last meeting, it was decided that a further investigation of, excuse me, folks, of the deceased creature will be carried out on the evening of the dog show. And I'm going to stop.
Jessika, thank you so much. A wonderful reading. I hope we don't have to carry you out on a stretcher on the show. Yeah, Jessika, wonderful reading. Big round of applause. This is Jessika Jenvieve, reading from the University Cat. I already asked you about your inspiration. Take your time. Get some water. Get some water, Jessika. All good. And I'm going to ask you later about the book that you're writing about your relatives that I know about. You already told me about it, where you all these dark secrets. But Lori, what are you reading today?
Okay, I'm reading a short story from a short book that contains 5 stories in it. So it's just a little bit of a short book. And this is about a small child who's a boy inventor. He just has a gift for inventing and a curiosity about everything. And as a side,
I read it this morning over oatmeal. It's awesome. And this is isn't it the pre-story of your Gerard Little, who is the main character in your novel?
He plays a character as an adult in the novel The Flight to Brass Bright. But unfortunately for him, I killed him off in the novel. So
that was a bad move, Laurie. I'm sorry. If I would have been your agent, you could have milked that character for much longer.
Well, as it turned out, I regretted doing it, so I backpedaled and I write about him as a child. So I write about his childhood now, and I love him as a kid. But the accident really was horrific. He was working on reversible wallpaper, and something went wrong, and they had to bury him floral side out. It was terrible.
Oh my God!
Oh, I know.
He's a great inventor. I hear he invented also My Little Peony.
Yes, My Little Peony, and he invented
Mommy's Little Helper.
Yes, Mommy's Little Helper. All kinds of little inventions out of him, and the percolator. Don't forget the percolator. Makes great coffee. So anyway,
okay. Laurie, go ahead.
Okay.
My life.
Yes. So this is back in Gerard's childhood, where he lives in a nice little house out in a tiny little town in Australia, and they live right next door to the factory where his father works, where they make steam trucks. So it's kind of a little mini version of Detroit there. But anyway, so we start in. The story's called A Catastrophe. Gerard spent a lot of his time playing in the backyard. There was lots of room to run and jump and tumble, and on hot days, a large apple tree provided both shade and snacks. A short wooden fence surrounded the property with a gate in back. That gate opened onto a path which led to the nearby steam wagon factory where Gerard's father worked. Most days, Gerard was in school when Pop took his lunch break, but the boy was usually home in time to dash down the path and visit him during his afternoon coffee break. One day, Gerard was wandering around the factory yard, waiting for Pop, who was running late for his afternoon break. To pass the time, he occupied himself by digging around in the scrap bin, looking for something interesting. You know, I heard about a way to build a perpetual motion machine the other day, said a good-natured drawl, pulling Gerard from his scrappy schemes. The boy looked up and saw Ed, one of the guys that worked at the factory. He was leaning against the open loading dock doorway, a mug of coffee in his hand. What's poop-actual motion? Gerard asked, abandoning his search and wandering over with his head tilted quizzically. Perpetual. Perpetual. Ed laughed and snorted all at once. It means something that'll run and run and run and never run down. An engine that can go on forever. Gerard waved his hand dismissively and rolled his eyes. Oh, that's impossible. Every machine needs winding up, or water to make steam, or kerosene, or something to make it go. And that stuff always runs out. Ed looked from side to side to make sure no one was listening, then motioned for Gerard to come closer. See, that's just the thing. This perpetual motion machine isn't made of mechanical parts. His voice grew breathless with excitement. How much do you know about cats? Gerard scratched his head. Not much, just that they get stuck in trees a lot, and the fire department has to come get them down. Well, you see, cats are mysterious critters, and rightly so, because they have a special power. Did you know that cats always land on their feet? Always, Ed said with emphasis, giving the boy a solemn nod. I've heard that, yeah, I guess. But what's that got to do with perpetual motion? Gerard asked. Well, there's more to it. Have you ever dropped a piece of buttered bread? Now, that was something the boy had a lot of experience with. Yeah, I have. It makes a mess, and Mother gets very cross, especially when there's jelly on the butter. But I still don't understand. It always lands butter side down, doesn't it? Ed said, a cunning grin forming on his lean, whiskered face. Does it? Sure seems to, now that I think of it. But are you sure? Always? Yes, always. And do you know what all this means? Cats like buttered bread? Gerard replied tentatively, feeling like he was failing miserably at this line of questioning. No, well, maybe. But that's not the point, Ed said, slightly exasperated. He looked again to the left and right, took a swig of his coffee, and continued. If you tie a piece of buttered bread to a cat's back with the buttered side up, you can drop the cat and what? Gerard asked, his voice rising in anticipation. And the cat will never land. It will just spin around in midair forever. The buttered bread is trying to land face down, but it can't because the cat's trying to land on its feet, Ed concluded triumphantly. Gerard flopped down on a nearby bench and scratched his head in confusion. What Ed was telling him sounded absurd, but the logic seemed to work. Ed tipped his cap and grinned. Well, break time is over, kid. Back to work for me. He downed the last gulp of his coffee, then ambled off, snickering. 3 days later. But, no buts, young man. You will have dinner in your room, and you will stay there this evening. You will write 100 times, I will not torment cats. And with that, Mother thrust a pile of paper and a pencil under her son's nose. The stories I'm hearing from the neighbors. Really, Gerard, we raised you better than this. Gerard grumbled, but took the paper and the pencil with a sigh. It was going to be a very long evening. As Mother was closing the door to Gerard's bedroom, Pop's voice carried down the hall. Dear, we're out of butter again. How does this keep happening? I just brought some home yesterday. The end.
Big round of applause. This is Lori Holuta, aka CJ Ryder, reading from A Life Invented from I guess the young life of the inventor Gerard Liddell. This
Mhm.
is just hilarious. Why did you start writing for children or YA? What appealed to you with that genre?
Well, I have a sense of humor. Kids have a sense of humor. I seem to click with kids whenever I'm talking with them. So I thought, why not? And it's fun.
I love YA myself, and it's completely surprising to me that the few YA authors that we had here have told me that apparently in some circles, young adult is still not really considered to be um, sort of real writing. There is some sort of, I mean, in some, I can't evaluate this
Hmm.
as just a reader. I'm not in that world, but they said there's some snobbish elitist circles where this is sort of considered, yeah, writing for kids, that's sort of easy. I do that sort of,
I
on the
I
weekends or
disagree
whatever.
with that. I've never had anyone come at me with that, but I disagree with it.
Yep.
And they're actually breaking out some new genre now. Well, it's not right now. It's been around a couple of years called new adult. So
Yes. Yep. Yep.
yeah, so they're even refining those separations. So sometimes I have to stop and think about where am I going to niche this book before I start writing, just so that I can gear my humor towards that age group.
Well, I
But
think you created you're doing young steam.
yeah,
This is
the
YS.
novel is the novel is young adult, but the little books that you bought are I aimed them for kids around 10 to 13, and they're short on purpose so that they're not intimidating to a child.
Wonderful stuff, and I certainly agree 100% with you and any sane person that knows that writing for younger readers is not at all easier. It's different, and it's the same, if not more, work and imagination required to actually really connect with readers.
They
Thank
expect
you.
more imagination than an adult does.
Oh yeah, I mean, what could
Hmm.
exactly? One could argue that you uh, won't get away with as much formulaic
Hmm.
layout as you could do with adults because they have already given up on the
Hmm.
imagination.
Yeah, and if you're ever doing a live reading to children, they will be brutally honest with you.
Yeah. Have you done a lot of live readings lately? I mean, that's
um,
obviously outside of the pandemic.
I have at some of the steampunk cons that I go to in the local Michigan area here, and I did one at a Barnes and Noble down in not Grand Rapids. What is it? Oh, I can't remember the town it was in, but it had
Mhm.
I had maybe 50 kids in front of me, and my knees were
Ah,
shaking.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Scary.
Hmm.
Jessica, you're back. Are you good? You feel good?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Wonderful.
This is a pandemic problem, Drax. When
Yeah.
you don't speak
Yeah.
for days on end, or when you do, it's only for a short period. Then when you start to read again, you cough. So it's back to voice lessons for me.
I recommend talking to yourself, which I do a lot, and then sometimes my son pops his head in and says, "What are you in a meeting? Oh my God, you're talking to yourself. That's
Mhm.
disturbing." And then he smirks and leaves. Ruby, please, it's your time now to read from A Flooded Courtyard, or as it's known in its original, Patio de Luces. And thank you, co-producer Strawberry Singh and my team, to letting us go over time. I'm lobbying to have this show for 90 minutes. That would be really great. But you know how these Lindens are. They're very brutal. They don't let me do stuff. They say your world, your imagination, but then they cut me off. I'm just joking. Ruby, what are we hearing from you?
Well, so what I'm reading is a small excerpt from my book, where the main character is going to find with her own eyes, something that the kingdom was trying to hide from everybody.
So she's in a kingdom. Let's set it up, and she fell through that time hole. Whatever, we don't know. We're not going to spoil it. Her name
Mhm.
is Deborah. She is uh, referred to as an anachronic in this kingdom. It's this fantastical kingdom, and she has to find her way. They have a different language. They don't have a 24-hour day. The all the customs are very strange.
Yeah,
Some good, some bad. And now we will hear what she will find out something strange. Go ahead, Ruby.
all
We're
right.
listening.
I got goosebumps. Everything was too quiet. With no wind, the atmosphere was strange, as if we were submerged in a cold and invisible liquid. I felt threatened by nature. The sky was like this on the day we found you, Craig explained. Just the same, stirred but at the same time asleep, calm. Can we go home now? I don't know. I don't feel safe. Maybe it was a bad idea that we came. Craig laughed. You don't feel safe, do you? And you haven't seen the storm breaking yet, he told me, still examining the sky. Lightning spreads through the clouds, flashing so hard that even if it were at night, you would think it was lunchtime. He extended his hands to the clouds. When it rains, the falling water is hot, like the breath of a beast, and it moves as if that same creature was walking above the clouds. And the wind now is sleeping. It has nothing to do with how it is when the storm is at full swing. When it wakes up, it has no mercy. It claws you apart, takes your breath away. Uh, are storms always like this in this place? I asked uneasily. He scratched his chin. It hasn't rained since you arrived, has it? I shook my head. What a coincidence, he murmured. Obviously not. Sometimes we have rain and then there are these storms, the freaking storms. Okay, and according to what you're telling me, don't you think it's safe to stay here if there's one like that about to explode? I raised my voice. He looked at me, amused. Let's go, he smiled. I'll take you to safety. I was not so happy as to smile back if it depended on me. I would have gone right now back to home, but the fear that the storm would catch me on the way was stronger than my will, and I did what I found more sensible, staying by his side, constantly watching the sky. We walked along the wall. The wood we walked on creaked at our feet. Disturbingly, this was the only sound that I could hear. To my left, the sea was too quiet. Even more so than moments before, the seagulls didn't even squawk, and that scared me. After walking for a bit, I noticed the huge boat that was anchored. At first, I thought it was a ruined building, but the doubt resolved when I saw its way. It had scaffolding hanging from the deck, abandoned. The mast looked bent, and the sails were missing. I stopped to get a better look at it. Not only were the mainmast sails absent, but it seemed that all the moorings had been ripped off. The bow was chipped, with the figurehead, which at some point would have been some kind of hoofed animal, was decapitated. That was the Lambo, our flagship, Craig explained, not waiting for me to ask. Well, people like to call it that, flagship. In truth, it is the last galleon that survived the colonization of these islands. They told you the story, right? Yes? Well, then you'll know that this boat is old as heck. I held back a smile. I liked hearing him talk like that. I'm surprised he's still afloat, but there he is, in his last. Look at him. He's falling apart. But it has been holding on, at least until the day we found you. Look at the time that has passed, and we still haven't been able to finish repairing it. Since I arrived, it's been about 3 months, right? More time. He tightened his lips, and his expression turned gloomy. Come, we have to get to that safe place I told you about. By the way, Sireneta, I have to show you something else. One of the warehouses was waiting for us with its doors open. Inside, a small group of people were toiling to pile sacks onto 5 wooden carts. When they saw the captain, they saluted without stopping working. This is Muirhel's first reserve silo. The emergency reserves are kept here. Grains, cereals, vegetables, dried fruits, sugar, honey, preserves, jerky, all the foods which as we could not survive or surpass the few chicken and cows that live in these islands. What do you think? Well, at a glance, without making an effort, I saw that there were hardly any bags left for the operators to stack. It's quite empty. That's it. Once they finish distributing everything tonight, it's over. And will there be no more? I got scared and grabbed him by the arms. He didn't back away. Easy. We have another emergency silo, and my colleague Elsa is right now at sea on an expedition. She should come back this week, but we still can't know what will come of it. The problem is that, well, the other silo has never been full. With what's in it, maybe we can get through another quarter or 4 months at the most. I dropped my gasp off his lips and watched everyone who was working, deliberately ignoring us to finish as soon as possible. How long has it been like this? That's it.
Thank you, Ruby. And here is Deborah, the anachronic, the woman who attempts suicide and comes up in this world and realizes that they're actually have no more food left and they're in a real crisis. And she steps up to the plate and suggests solutions. And it's a really good story. I'm quite impressed that you pushed out this book which has 450 pages. I have to wrap up the mainstream, and we can stick around and do a little bit post game and talk a little bit about craft, a little bit about tips, starting writing maybe later in life even. I think that's an important question that a lot of people are sort of thinking about themselves. But I have to wrap up because the stream team has to go to another meeting. Thank you guys so much. This was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful discussion. Everyone in the audience here, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, please check out the links to these authors. Pick up a book, come in world, check out their in-world place as well. Thanks to the team. Thanks to this wonderful audience. We have a full house today. It's absolutely amazing. Next week, we have an author from India. Again, we have a lot of Indian folks here. It's amazing. They love to come here. But Kaveri Matavan lives in Ireland and has been living there for a long time and writes about the connection of the history of Ireland and India. Quite fascinating stuff. So that's next week conversation with Kaveri Matavan. And I'll see you guys all next week at 12 o'clock Second Life time on the Second Life Book Club.